Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. And guess what, y'all? It's that time of year. Football is a-coming. Hall of Fame game on Thursday. It's preview season. We're starting you off with the NFC East. Shout out to Coach Prime. Hope you're doing well out there. Because I got with me, the one and only, the world-renowned, the world-famous, Cool Calm Collector. He was born in Texas, raised in VA. He represented New Jerusalem. Even though we previewing the NFC East, he wants absolutely nothing to do with the Giants. Mr. Logical's in the building. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Then, of course, it's I down here in the Alamo. Your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Left a lot quicker than Manny Pacquiao was a couple weekends ago. I believe in Joe Hendry. You should too. I am 2-5. So do me a favor out there. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things and make sure you got a liquid death too. And we are everywhere you get your podcast. Let's do it. So, Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
Like I said, 4 teams, 1 crown. How will the East be won?
You know that urban legend they talk about, Larry Bird walking to the locker room at the All-Star game, talking about who's here for second place. I think we got one of those situations about to play out, but we'll go through it. But I just have a feeling that a couple of these teams are in a rebuild. One is clearly in a rebuild. It's about to get worse because I think they're going to lose their coach. They're going to be moving in a rookie quarterback, bringing a new coaching staff in. The other one is just being led by a narcissist who will never get out of the way of his own team's success. One team is young and up and coming, but they're not going to catch you by surprise. And the other team basically runs out 8 offensive linemen every play, and they win in the 3 yards and cloud of dust. But we'll go through it piece by piece, and we'll argue our points. I feel like it's going to be entertaining just because it's the teams. They're like some of the most popular teams in sports, not just football. And like I said, I like the fans. I think the fans are so like fanatical that they define and epitomize fanatic. So just the NFC East is probably one of the most entertaining sports regions in America. And you throw Dallas in, even though not anywhere near the East Coast, but
right.
The previous ownership knew like, hey, this is a place to be. And I think this coming season is going to stand true to that.
So, look, the NFC East, what more can I say? There has not been a repeat champion in this division since 2003, 2004. That was the whole string of Andy Reid winning 5 NFC East in a row and going to the playoffs and NFC Championship game. They had a Super Bowl appearance in there. Hasn't happened since then. We've seen a little bit of everybody win the division. And hell, you don't even got to win the division to win the Super Bowl. Ask the Giants. They did it twice. So the NFC East, right? This is where this division gets interesting for me. Last year, Philly, 7-2 in games decided by 7 points or less. Washington, 8-1 in games that came down to 1 score. And when you look at it, they had the luck on their side, right? You had the Hail Mary against Chicago. They had the game against the Giants, the early game where the Giants should have won, but they didn't have a kicker. They beat Philly late in the season, but Jalen Hurts got hurt in the first quarter. So I'm in a state of confusion as a Washington fan because I don't know what to take away from last year. How good was Washington, and how much did the football gods look out for them? When I look at Dallas, they have Dak Prescott coming back. So, you figure it might take a few weeks, to get it revved up again. Starting off at Philly, no fun. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But when you look at Philadelphia's early schedule, there's a lot that could happen there. So, Mr. Logical, one of the things that I thought about, it's a good thing Philly went out and got A.J. Dillon. Because when you add up the regular season, playoffs, Super Bowl, all that stuff last year, Saquon got 420 carries.
That's a lot of touches.
That's a lot of touches. His previous career high in rushes was 295. And that was the year that the Giants made the playoffs. So you're talking over 100 more carries that he had over the course of a year. So we also know that Saquon early in his career was known to miss a game or two.
True indeed.
So with that type of load on him, so to speak, makes me a little concerned. But they got A.J. Dillon to spell him at times. They lost Kenneth Gainwell in the backfield. Philly is still the best team in this division. And, as they say, by a country mile.
Yes.
No one should challenge Philly in this division. But the thing that's going to challenge Philly is that schedule.
The schedule was tough. Like we just did, little mini preview before the show started, a little pre-meeting. The schedule is tough. But when you break down, Philly has the kids say now this aura. I hate that. I hate the way they use it, but it is what it is. We got a sign of the times. They put fear in people from the front office to the fan base. There's literally GMs that won't take a call from 215 area code. They just won't accept it. Like the GM has other GMs afraid to deal with them. So walking in the buildings, I mean, look at last year they had Mekhi Becton and Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. It's like 6'8", 6'8", 6'7". You're not supposed to have that on your offensive line. And then they beefed it up again with a couple more draft picks, like 2 or 3 more draft picks this year. And then, offensive linemen really like to galvanize it because they have to work together. Every single play, they have to be in sync. A wide receiver and a quarterback can kind of be off, but can figure it out mid-play with, extending the play. A lineman pulling the wrong way or not, checking or not helping, the whole thing can get blown up. So those guys operate in such unison that everybody that they bring in tends to work. Hence why Saquon had a lot of carries, but it didn't feel like he was being overloaded because he was getting 4.5, 5 yards a touch. Jalen Hurts was,
and they were saving him at the goal line because Jalen Hurts was stealing all the touchdowns,
getting all the push, which was, I think, a couple of teams got a few stops, but for the most part, it was like a 99% success rate, 3rd and 4th and 1 using the tush push. So I just feel like that bravado and that force that they bring, on top of the fact that they went into the Super Bowl and dismantled, the defending world champ, some people's future GOAT, some people's potentially greatest coach of all time, Andy Reid, because he was able to do it for so long. And like you talked about the 2003 run is 2025 and Andy Reid still making that run. So like the way they dismantled the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, everyone's watching that film. Everyone saw that film as like, what can we do against that?
And then there's something else that we have to consider that I really don't want to consider. But to quote Dallas Mike, the Cowboys own the NFC East. Dak Prescott, 33-8 career record against the NFC East. 11-2 against my Commanders. 9-4 against Philly. This is what he does. So once he gets revved up, like I said, just 2 years ago, in my opinion, he was the MVP, and then or he should have at least got more consideration, but they lost that game to Miami, and they started playing process of elimination. But so the thing about Dallas that has me a little nervous, and I'm sure Dallas Mike is going to correct me on this, but I was wondering if the Cowboys this season could be the Bengals of last year, where the offense is going to put up a bunch of points. But that secondary not as strong as it could be, as it has been. Deron Bland's been banged up. Diggs been banged up. Micah Parsons waiting on a contract. Like there's a lot going on in that defense.
And that contract is
is
being
out.
dangled out there too, quite disrespectfully. That's what I'm saying. Like
Definitely.
the president, owner, GM, chairman, whatever his titular position is, he is not doing his team any favors, and I think that weighs on you. Like the organization that you work in, and the leadership, and the people who are in these positions, you have an expectation from them, and he is not setting a great expectation for it to trickle down. And I think when times get rough, a team like Washington, who believes in those one-score games, we can win it. That's why they went 8-1. Philly 7-2. They had the fluky loss against Atlanta that was just kind of just out of nowhere. But 7-2. You need a team to believe in like each other, and the organization subsequently believe in them for those kind of games to turn out. Dallas is in such a weird space because it is Dallas. You do get a lot of attention. A lot of these guys are playing for a lot of money. And the gap between some of these guys' checks is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. What Dak is getting, what CD is getting, and what Mike is asking for, you get that money, you start out 3-3. It could be some dissension in the locker room. Like, yo,
they could start.
Three of y'all are getting $100 million, and you can't get us wins. So it just, I think that, and on top of the fact that I think the owner does a poor job of cultivating a good team environment versus a great celebrity reality TV environment. He does a great job of that. But as far as like cultivating a team and building a team and a coalition of men who are trying to go out and succeed, does a terrible job of it. And I think that's going to raise their head, especially like we said, with the schedule. They could start 3-3.
They could.
And not look good. It could be 3 bad losses.
And we're going to pull up the schedules here in a little bit, but so now that we, got all of that out the way, let's take it from the top. So Philadelphia, the defending Super Bowl champions, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. They lost a lot this offseason. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay. But you know what, Mr. Logical? It's one of those things, right? The things that make the great teams great is that they make a move, and you always say, how y'all let them get him? Like when you look at OKC in the NBA, you're like, Nikola Topic just chilling on the bench. You know what I mean? Like you go back, like the Patriots, you just, y'all just gonna let them get Randy Moss? Y'all just gonna let them get Ocho Cinco?
Fourth round pick at midnight.
Yeah. So when I was looking at the NFL draft, right? I was looking at the first round. I was like, okay, I need a corner. So we took Josh Connerly, out of Oregon, the Abdul Carter stopper. And then as Philly gets on the clock, and I'm sitting there and I go, they better not. They better not. And by the time I could blink, all I could hear myself saying is, how the fuck y'all let Philly get Jihad Campbell? How? The most athletic defender in the draft.
They were trying to move up for him. But that's the thing. They were trying to move up for him, but no one, the NFL teams are afraid to answer the 215. They wouldn't answer Howie's phone calls, or they wouldn't make a move.
Yeah.
They wouldn't make a move, and they wouldn't answer the calls, or they were like, oh, we'll get back to you. And he still got the guy he wanted. Kept
still
his draft
got the guy
capital.
He wanted at 31 or 32. And
he laughed at other GMs. Like he laughed at the Falcons GM for giving up a first.
He was working on an injury, but I think he'll be fine once the season gets underway. They also got Andrew Makuba from Texas. He was the safety back there with Jahdae Barron. And this is from Pro Football Focus. He forced an incomplete pass on 26.1% of his targets. So, yeah, welcome to Philadelphia, guy. They went and got Smell Mondon from Georgia, right? Probably one of the top 5 or 6 best tacklers in the draft. And, of course, like I said, from Georgia. So the Philadelphia keeps the pipeline going. But,
SEC pipeline, that's it.
But there are some concerns for Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts, we've been talking about for the last couple of years, seems like he has a new offensive coordinator every year. And he's got another one this year because Kellen Moore is down in New Orleans. They got Kevin Patullo coming in. But the good news is that Patullo was the passing game coordinator for them. So he's in the building. He was there already. So he has a general idea of how to run things. So I don't think it's going to be significant, but it's just something to keep an eye on considering
Yeah,
how.
but he's literally had a different offensive play caller
I know.
like 9 years in a row,
I
like from
know.
high school through college to the NFL. So I don't like if it was someone. You remember how Brady would have like a new play caller every few years, but pretty much you knew that play caller would adjust to what Brady likes. I
Right.
think Jalen has such a unique style and it's very clear and it's easy to call. Like he doesn't. It's. I think calling plays for Patrick Mahomes is highly difficult because of the way he wants to throw the ball. I think calling him for Josh Allen is probably the same way. But a guy like Lamar, remember like Flacco back in the day, certain guys like, you know what? This is how they're going to play is very simple. And I think Jalen is like, listen, I don't want to do all this extra. Just get AJ over here. Let me get a one-on-one. Let me get this slot guy here. Let me get the tight end coming across. If you can make that happen from either direction, I'm good. I don't need all of this tricky bubble screens. Like, we don't need none of that. I don't need none of that. Just block up front. Get these dudes open in front of me where I got a couple of options here, or I can duck out, get out of bounds, running the ball.
And as far as week 1 goes, Thursday night, it's going to set the tone for this division because Dak, welcome back, going to Philly. You know what I mean? So we're going to find out how healthy Dak is really quick. We're going to find out with the Eagles defense if they can carry that same type of aura into this season. I expect Keely Ringo to break out this year as well. So as we look here, let's pull up the schedule real quick for Philadelphia. Dallas Mike says they will be ready. So you're on notice, Philadelphia fans. Saying here we go. So looking at Philly here, starting it out from the top. Like I said, Dallas, week 1. Saying I'm going to pencil it in as a win just because.
I would have rather seen Kansas City week 1 rematch, though.
That's always been
if I'm the thing. NFL, it's like,
why not have the Super Bowl rematch?
Dallas Philly is going to be prime time any time of the year. You can make that. That's going to be a dope-ass game. But I would have loved to see Philly versus Kansas City. But, I get it. You don't want Kansas City potentially starting off 0-1.
Man, fuck Kansas City. They can start 0-1. Patrick Mahomes. Hey,
can't overcome 0-1.
Hey, that's a quote. 2-5 says, quote, fuck Kansas City, unquote. But as you look at that, look at week 2, right? You got to go to Arrowhead. So when you look at Arrowhead, I don't think Kansas City has had enough time to fix the offensive line problems that they had against Philadelphia. So not the fact that their line got any better or worse, but you're playing against that team again. And I have no reason to just suddenly believe you're going to be.
They don't have enough time. They don't have enough time for mistakes to happen and then get fixed and then play Philly again.
And can Kansas City run the football?
Week 4, maybe if they played them in week 4, I think they could fix the first 3 weeks. Because it has to be some growing pains with the offensive line because it was the 2 Super Bowl losses that they had, the offensive line was egregious. So I think Philly's going to take advantage of Dak coming back and somewhat. I just have a feeling that Dallas is going to spend the rest of this offseason just kind of muddled in some kind of problems. Like, I just feel like shit won't get ironed out with Dallas, and it's going to be Jerry Jones on his different radio show.
Don't forget, they're bringing in a new head coach, too.
Ruffling the feathers. They got a head coach that literally will not talk. He will not do anything that deviates from what Jerry says. So it's just, it's the same thing. Mike McCarthy at least has some cachet as a Super Bowl winning coach. And the guy's won a lot of games. Granted, he was on the same level as Sean Payton. So he coached a lot of games, won a lot of games. So he had a little bit. And they were all healthy and successful.
I got you, Mike. I'm gonna talk about that. But
so I like Philly win week 1, week 2. Los Angeles did play them tough in the snow and Philly in the playoffs, so we can't disregard that.
Tampa seems to have their number.
Tampa has a thing, but Tampa's a year older. Guys coming off an injury.
But Tampa also
they're gonna have huge expectations. Yeah. Tampa's going to have real expectations of like dominating early on and showing like they are the class of the NFC South. So I think, it might get in a situation where Baker's throwing the ball 45, 48 times.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how these seasons play out. I just think Philly is I think Philly is just like what they do well is like draft players, continuity, but they're exceptional. Their units work together exceptionally. We can talk about something like Cleveland. Myles Garrett is an exceptional defensive player, and because of him, that kind of helps the rest of the defensive line because he's getting double or triple teamed, a lot of attention. They slide a line his way. Philly just plays such a great unit that you can't make a mistake. We saw Mahomes. Mahomes rarely makes mistakes. He rarely gets fooled. He was getting fooled all day. And that's because everybody is doing the correct thing. Cooper G, rookies don't catch interceptions or returning for touchdowns in Super Bowls. That guy got a year better. Quinn Mitchell got a year better. Yeah, they lost some players, but I feel like the experience that those guys had, not like they had these guys playing a subservient role, and now you're expecting them to elevate. They were playing a primary role with the veterans on the team, and the veterans are gone. A lot of these guys are stepping up. So I'm breaking their schedule. Philly won a lot of games.
I'm breaking their schedule down to 3 games. I'm looking at week 4 at Tampa because, like I said, over the last few years, Tampa just seems to have their number. Even when you look at Philly last year, the run that they went on, Tampa Bay, for whatever reason, just rises up for them. Styles make fights, I guess. Week 10, Monday Night Football at Lambeau. I'm interested to see the Packers this year. I want to see what Jordan Love's going to bring to the table. So I'm interested in that game. And then finally down here, as we get deeper into the schedule here, week 17, you got Buffalo, a trip up to, up to the lake, in between.
It will be cold and snowing.
In between 2 games with Washington. So those are the 3 games that I think are going to decide if Philly wins this division or not. And I think that Philly can go.
Wait, you think those 3 games are going to be the deciding factor?
Yes, because
I think best case scenario, those be the only 3 games they lose, and they'll still go 14-3.
I think that they split with Washington. Like off top, I think they split with Washington. I think
at the end of the year, yeah.
I think they do lose to Tampa. I think that I'm going to pencil that in as a loss. And then it gets kind of tricky. So this trip to the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, and then coming back for that could be tricky. Like the whole trap game, because then you got Washington the week after that in Buffalo. So you can't even take a break right there. You know what I mean? You can't even take a break right there. So that's where I feel like Philly could be in trouble. That's why I penciled that Green Bay game. Can they win that game on the road? Monday Night Football, Lambeau. It's not going to be super cold just yet. But Denver is going to be a toss-up game. I'm giving it to them because it's at home. And I remember last year, Bo Nix, as great as he was as a rookie, he struggled against the better teams on that schedule. Like I remember Baltimore putting a 41-10 foot in his ass. You know what I mean? And so like
Denver's record is a bit of fool's gold because their last 5 games they won, I think they were like 5-6 at some point, or 5-7, something like that. And they won 5 games. I think it was like Gardner Minshew was a starter, Carson Wentz when Kansas City sat everyone, and like 2 or 3 more backup quarterbacks. I think they lost to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was probably like the only starter, but that was his last game starting. He got benched after that. So I think Denver, like I said, me and Sean Payton, like I'll give him credit for grinding through.
Right.
But what they did last year isn't sustainable. Bo Nix was not that dynamic of a passer. Yeah, he was good and he was young, but I think it just looked better because people feel like Sean Payton did so much for the quarterback position. It's a little fool's gold.
Right.
It's boring to say, because we talked about this a few years back, you and I, before we had a show and everything else, we talked about how like Golden State looks so dominant. It's boring to say that they're going to dominate, for the rest of that season. I see more flaws impacting other teams on Philly schedules than Philly brings. Like when everyone shows up base level, I think the age of the Rams quarterback is going to be a factor. I think that it's a do or die kind of like this is it. Like this is the last hurrah for Matthew Stafford. I like Tampa Bay. I'm still not a big Todd Bowles guy. I'm not sure exactly what he does on the sidelines. Very confusing. And they lost
Just
their
yells blitz.
they lost their offensive coordinator in some weird kind of goddamn Watergate spy
Duval.
smuggle situation. So I think Baker Mayfield getting a new coordinator. I think that's more impactful than Jalen Hurts. Denver, New York. I like Russ, but maybe even by week 6, Jackson Dart probably will be starting. So that's going to be easy one. Minnesota, I saw a couple of, granted, I know it's practice, but I saw JJ McCarthy not looking like a guy who's going to lead them to 13 wins like Sam Darnold did last year.
I've been seeing a lot of people pick Minnesota to either win that division or be a wild card team, and I'm just scratching my head because I just can't. I just don't know. But yeah, so Philadelphia, it's going to come down to, how much is the offense going to change? How much is the offense going to change with the new coordinator? Can Saquon stay healthy? When it gets, and before I go any further, y'all, I'm not turning into Cam Newton here. You know what I'm saying? But in those close games, saying, can Jalen Hurts get the ball to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith consistently? I know that he can do it. I know that he's a good quarterback, but if he has to win the game in a moment, can he do that? And I think that teams are going to try to force Philadelphia to do that. Like I mentioned, Saquon, the 420 carries. Maybe by the end of the season, we're looking back at it and we're saying, yeah, I did it. What did it cost? Everything. You know what I mean? So we're going to see how Philadelphia. Yeah, we're going to see how it pans out. But Philadelphia, like I said, they should win this division. But I ain't going to say they are. But we'll get back to that later. You know what I mean? So then, of course, let's take it over to Landover, Maryland. The Commanders, fresh off the NFC Championship game, fresh off of off-season full of moves. Went out and got Laramie Tunzel to fix up the offensive line. Sam Cosmi got hurt last year. He's not going to be starting the season. You got Josh Connolly, who I talked about, got drafted from Oregon. Watch some video, y'all. He owns Abdul Carter. I'm just throwing that out there now. Then you got Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, who I love. I've been dying for the last 3 years. Give me a corner. Give me a corner. We might have got a top 4 corner in the draft. Can Marshawn Lattimore get back to form? Or is he old man Lattimore now?
Can he stay on the field?
Can he stay on the field?
Can he stay on the field?
If so, I like it because Mike Sanistril, saying, there you go, Mike, your Michigan shout out. Mike Sanistril can move to the inside, into the slot where he belongs. And that'll make the secondary that much better. St. Just is gone, so I'm clapping about that. We went out and got, Von Miller about a week ago. So now we got the NFL version of the Los Angeles Clippers. We got Von Miller on one side, Bobby Wagner on the other.
All you got to do is go try to keep Ndamukong Suh from retiring.
Right. I need Jonathan Allen to go back to Pro Bowl form. Johnny Newton, we talked about him last year. Atlanta should have drafted him, so we need Johnny Newton to step up. So I'm still not necessarily convinced that Washington's defense is there, but it'll be better than last year, I think. Problem is the offense might regress because I can't count on Jaden Daniels with the heroics in the way that he took over games last year to be consistent like that. Because one, he run too damn much. Due to Brian Robinson being hurt, Jaden Daniels led the team in rushing last year. Brian Robinson, though, the good news is he's in a contract year. So, are we going to see him get the ball a little bit more? Is Eckler going to catch the ball out of the backfield as he should a lot more?
Hold on to the ball.
But then they went out and got another running back, but they're going to put him at wide receiver, Deebo Samuel.
Yo, I don't know. I don't know why so much. I don't want to say hate because I think that word's overused. The criticism of Debo is like I've seen some of these workout videos. The dude's always been somewhat linebacker built. Hence why he was getting the ball. Like he was never built like Terry McLaurin.
Hence why he gets hurt
It
because he's
wasn't
trying
like
to take everybody on.
he just has to learn like what Andrew Luck did and just run out of bounds. Remember, Andrew Luck was throwing that shoulder to people, then he rehabbed a lot, and then he came back for that 1 year and he was jumping out of bounds.
Right.
He has to learn that part, but I just felt like the targeted criticism about his weight and his size was just overblown. Considering I was watching videos of him and XL from Carolina working out together, and I was like, they looked on par athletically on the treadmill and everything else. So I think it'll work. Just you gotta get the ball out of Daniel's hand. They can't call a lot of pass plays. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in about 35 passes. That should be your average. You shouldn't have a game where the guy's throwing 45, 50 passes in multiple weeks. You shouldn't have that many dropbacks, especially when he scrambles. Because if he scrambles, don't mean someone's not open. So just like if they can consistently just get the ball to the backs, run the ball consistently. But the problem that we talked about, like you're highlighting with Washington, is like a lot of things are works in progress. And then you have, they're a couple of players away from being 10-7, 9-8. But ultimately with 12-5 because the late games were rolled.
One score games. They were that close to being 4-13.
Yeah, but sometimes those stats are a little misleading because like the other team gets the ball and they score and then they recover the onside kick and technically it's a one-score game. But like the game against Cincinnati when he threw like I believe it was like a fourth down pass for a touchdown. Games like that is like I don't know if that's going to happen 2 or 3 times again this next season, but the fact that they got these tools and they're working things in, I think that puts them firmly at second in the division. I think they're in position to get 10, 11 wins, wild card, but I still feel like they're punching up trying to catch Philly.
Well, I think that there's a balance game, right? Like I said, I think the defense is going to be improved, but the offense may regress a little bit. Obviously, as Mike brought up earlier, Terry McLaurin in that situation, is that going to be something that lingers over the team at the start of the season? Like maybe it'll pan out later, but at the start of the season, is there going to be a lot of hiccups, a lot of distraction going on? We'll see. I think that it'll be fine. I think Terry is, as they say, the consummate professional, so we'll see. But let's look at this, pull this up here. So, week 1, I'm already loving it, what I'm saying? Because I don't know if but Russell Wilson can't run no more. So I'm not worried about broken plays taking care of a secondary that might not be that great to begin with. So I like week 1 opening up with the Giants. As I look down those first 8 games there, I can see a 3-1 start. So chalk up one of the Green Bay or Atlanta, but I'm gonna go with Green Bay in this scenario. I think they lose at Los Angeles. And then I think, Chicago could be a win. I mentioned Dak and how he owns us, 11-2 career against Washington. So that game at Dallas on October 19th, I ain't going to say I'm shitting bricks, but, I'm aware. Go to Arrowhead the week after that, Monday Night Football. I'm not feeling that. You know what I mean? But
that
then
could, like that first 8, that could be 3-5.
But it ain't going to be.
The 3 wins being New York,
the Raiders,
Chicago. I got to ride for my squad on September 28th. We might come down to the compressor.
They're your squad for now until you start talking about not buying no more merchandise.
I still not buying no more. Like, yeah, I went to the Beyonce concert at the stadium, but I didn't buy any merch. I got the free cup though. with a
But
cup
then,
came with my whiskey.
but
But yeah,
then after,
like I said, I like it, but it could be a situation where like 3-5 or a just an unimpressive 4-4 is a reality. And I think for a young team that caught everybody off guard, they only lost 5 games last year, to start off your schedule with those 8 games. Because like I said, we scroll it up real quick. Just want to like make sure I get this right again. There's like some real like tough games in
real
there in
talk.
that first 8. So how are you going to handle the success from last year and the potential rocky beginning of this season?
Well, I
Especially
think
if you slip one of the Giants or something, because the Giants, we're going to talk about them.
I
They
think
have a lot of like first round talent on their defensive line.
I think it
So
starts at
if
the
these
top,
guys have
though.
one good game, it could be against Washington. You know what I mean?
I think it starts at the top, though, because when you think about it, like more so when I watch college football, you see the coaches, the way that they react on the sideline to adversity. The team usually brings that to the field. So if your coach is over there looking nervous, not looking sure of himself, the team comes out kind of tight and makes dumb mistakes, gets penalties, those type of things. But Dan Quinn so far in this tenure, has been cool, calm, collective. I mean, he is the author of 28-3. So that does something to a man. You know what I'm saying? You either fall down or you come with that chip on your shoulder.
He probably was going home every night rubbing that genie lamp like, thank you for Jane Daniels.
Yes.
Because if Chicago last year before the draft, if they would have really interviewed Caleb Williams and interviewed Jane Daniels, like, and really like asked the tough questions, I think Caleb Williams would have let it slip that he didn't want to go to Chicago. But I think he was like that because he said in an interview that he didn't want to go there until after he went to the city and visited and realized, I think I can win here. But before then, him and his dad were trying to make a move to not go there. So Dan Quinn probably was thinking like, thank God they didn't interview Caleb Williams early and I got Jane Daniels, because that dude, he covered up a lot of the mistakes, and the scoreboard was irrelevant with him on the field. He's like, you know what?
Yeah.
He's gonna get us back. So like the way they performed in the NFC playoffs when they dismantled Detroit on those 4th down calls that he called, I believe it was like 3 or 4 in the first half, or 3 or 4 throughout that game, throwing on 4th down. I mean, it just was like that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That was the other thing I forgot to bring up. Like talking about those things that went into Washington's favor. They were 79% on 4th down last year. That ain't continuing.
Sometimes, like, I don't really rock with analytics, but sometimes, like 4th and 2, you got a 2-yard play. Like if you 4th and 2, 45-yard field goal,
but you gotta figure out, right? Like, who really thought that Mark Andrews was going to drop that pass in the end zone?
Well, that was a 2-point conversion. You know what I mean? Like it happens, but
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
The play was perfect. The play was literally, I would say unstoppable, but the play was full. He was wide open. Like that play.
But that's what I'm saying. Those are the things that happen, though, like throughout the course of a season. You know what I mean? Because like, think about it, right? Like, you played basketball before, you probably make 98 out of 100 layups. You know what I mean? But you're gonna miss those 2. It just happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just happens. But even if that start that you're talking about happens, if the team isn't totally lost, I like the rest of the schedule. You know what I mean? I like Seattle. I mean, I ain't scared of Sam Darnold. And even then, I ain't scared of Jalen Milroe. I mean, come on now. You know what I'm saying? Like, Seattle ain't doing nothing this year. Detroit lost their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So by week 10, they should figure it out and get back on track. But you never know. Going to if we were playing Miami, we're going to Spain. I ain't worried about that. Bye week, you come back. You got a week to game plan for Denver's defense. Now,
when's the trade deadline? Sometime in October, right?
Granted, I'm not taking Denver for granted or whatever, but it's at home. So, I just think it's one of those things that, the schedule just kind of lines up. The trade deadline is November 4th. So,
all right. Yeah, so Miami's going to be a seller by then, so that'll be an easy game for you. Tyreek Hill will be somewhere.
So coming off of Denver, right? Give me Jaden Daniels on the turf. You know what I mean? Then you got at the Giants, who might be playing Jackson Dart by then. You know,
Absolutely.
and then that's where you get into the end, right? Those 3 games, Philly, Dallas, Philly. That's where you got to go 2-1 in that stretch to have any dreams
So
of
two
winning
and
that
one in that
division.
stretch, you got them at 11-7, right? That's
11-6,
what you're
yeah.
calling 11. Yeah, 11-6. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
11-6.
11-6. I think that's reasonable, but I think 10-7. I think 10-7 still gets them a wild card in the NFC because I don't think the NFC North is going to get you an 11-win team, and I don't think I think the division winner.
11 wins unless Tampa just
Yeah,
runs away with that
yeah,
thing.
and I think like the second place teams in the NFC South, NFC North, I don't think they're going to have 11 wins. So I think 10-7 gets Washington a wild card.
Okay. So then you got the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? The owners of Jerry World, the owners of the media, the owners of First Take. Look, I said it before, right? Dak Prescott owns the NFC East. Dallas went out and they did some good things too. You know, Tyler Booker in the draft on the offensive line. Donovan Ezaraku. Remember, we kept trying to say his name on draft day. Donovan Ezaraku. Yes, I did say that name about 70 times today, so I can get it right. You know what I mean? They got Jaden Blue in the 5th round. You know, who might be the fastest running back in the draft. The only problem is he got to stop impersonating early Tiki Barber. You know, once he gets the fumbling down.
I read a report that he's not that motivated to work.
Well, we'll see. You know what I mean? But they also went out and
last in, first out kind of potential.
They went out and got Javonte Williams, you know, former Denver Bronco. He was coming off an injury last year. So I think that a lot of people probably have given up on him. You know, they went and got the corner from East Carolina that I love, Siobhan Revel. You know, he's coming off the ACL, though. Sounds like he might have had a setback, so that's probably more of a future thing. But I like that pickup as well. So, you know, on top of that, CeeDee Lamb has the best receiver on the other side of him that he's had in his career. George Pickens is in the house now. So now the question with George Pickens is can he keep his head on straight?
How many 15-yard penalties are going to be too much before the Dallas has to sit him down for a game? He's going to get his buttons are this big, and they're everywhere. You touch his shoulder pad, he goes off. You touch his chest, he goes off. You touch his helmet, he goes off. And that's under Mike Tomlin, a respected coach, a black coach who's been doing it for decades and who had Antonio Brown. So it's like Pickens should be like, you know what? I got to at least recognize the fact that this man is not suspending me for my behavior, because if he was a 5th round talent, he would have been cut. Like I said, Jimmy Johnson was like, what do you do if the 4th round running back falls asleep in a meeting? You cut him. Emmitt Smith does it. You nudge him. He was getting nudged a lot in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he has that same kind of cachet in Dallas, and especially if it doesn't translate to the field. You can look at the talent and the fact that he looks like AJ Green and he could be physically dynamic, you know, like the other Georgia wide receiver. But it's like, you got to put that on tape. You got to put that on the field. And if you don't, or if Dallas can't run the ball and he's, you know, it's I think it's so many things that are just kind of building against Dallas that they have to overcome just to get wins on the board. I mean, so like some teams can come back like, oh, this guy is coming back from injury. We got to work him back in. Dallas has to work their running game back in because they couldn't work on that last year. They have to work on getting the offensive line scheme together. They have to work on getting defensive players paid and getting the camaraderie in the locker room. They just have so much shit going on before the ball gets kicked. And that's the thing I feel with Dallas.
Some of that is why I think Dallas can surprise people, though. You know, because, I mean, if you look at the numbers, of course, you know, they were 29th in defense last year. But, you know, what you expect if Dak's not there, you know, the offense, you know, going 3 and out a lot, on the field a lot. So it's hard to really take anything from that. You know what I mean? They're going to be better this year. I think that. Well, first of all, let me ask you. You know who their defensive coordinator is?
Was Mike Nolan didn't come back? I don't know.
They went and got you a dog, Eberflus. You know what I'm saying? As the defensive coordinator. So
yeah, they're not serious. They're not a serious organization. Like I'm gonna make this cross sports analogy. I do it a lot. I think Dallas and many facets of how they operate and how they're covered and their expectations versus the realities, it's a lot like the Lakers. I think the Lakers have a couple of great pieces of Luka and LeBron, and they have for years with LeBron and AD. But the expectation because of those two great pieces is like people just kind of ignore all the other factors that matter in being successful as an organization. Dallas seems to operate primarily as a soap opera that also plays football sometimes. And when it's good, it's great. When it's 12-5, it's great. But then they lose in the playoffs and everything falls apart. I'm like, they're still a good team. But I think over the last couple of years, the football aspects of what they need to succeed haven't been properly addressed. And you saw that as soon as Dak tore his hamstring off the bone. And that's a terrible injury. But you knew the bottom was going to fall out. And I get there's always going to be a regression. If you have to go from Trevor Lawrence to Gardner Minshew like they did, yes, the talent level is going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. But it shouldn't feel like you went from Dak Prescott to Nathan Peterman and he's throwing the ball away. But that's what it feels like because I think they didn't do enough to fix their problems last season.
Oh, yes, he was.
And then
he tore that shit off like Thanksgiving, bro.
Off the bone. Off these ribs I was eating earlier. Something else that happens in Dallas every year. Tyler Booker, young offensive lineman. He's talking about Super Bowl champion. That's the expectation. Why wouldn't it be? Well, you don't have an all-pro anywhere offensively. You don't have your all-pro, all-world defensive end signed. You have a GM that has consistently stolen the limelight from his team.
He got rid of a good coach right now.
He got rid of a good coach to bring in a guy whose dad used to be a good coach. It's like everything that you can do wrong. If that was Arizona Cardinals helmet and they were operating the same way Dallas was, not a single person in that building would be talking about the Super Bowl. And that's where they get off track every year. Talent aside, they always get off track by having these lofty expectations because of the star versus like, what are we actually getting done? Are they going to be good at what are they like 2.3 yards a carry?
And then you got
in the run game.
You got Clayton Adams coming in as the offensive coordinator. He's done a lot of offensive line coaching, since 2005, mostly in college. The only time he's had any offensive coordinator responsibilities, he was a co-offensive coordinator back in 2016 at Colorado. So that was pre-prime, obviously. So, not a lot of experience there. So is this going to be one of those situations where Schottenheimer is still going to control the offense or try to take control? Because I guess McCarthy had a lot of control of the offense. But also, Dallas made some other moves too. They're bringing in Miles Sanders, so another running back. So now 3 deep new running backs. Then you got the pickup that I like that I haven't brought up yet. They went and got the guy that from Buffalo that I've been on since day one. He hasn't quite met the potential yet, but I still got to believe it's in there. Kyer Elam. I got to believe that the talent is in there and it's going to come out at some point. As much as I hate Dallas
because the last time game against, I believe, Miami, maybe they were picking on him.
Yeah.
They were like getting singled out.
Yeah. And as much as I hate Dallas, I hate, that Overshown, may not be ready to start the season. He got hurt in week 14, I believe it was. And before I even go any further, can we stop naming our kids like DeMarvion? Like, I love Overshown so much. I did not know his first name until today, though. And I was just like,
DeMarvion. Is his dad named Marvin?
Marvion, you know what I mean? But
Mama named Deborah, daddy named Marvin.
So Dallas is the wild card here, from the standpoint of if Dak can come back and get back to some type of form, they can make life hell in this division for Washington and Philadelphia as far as playing spoiler. On a given Sunday, they could beat anybody. On a given Sunday, they could lose to anybody. So I don't know where to stand with Dallas on this. So let's take it to the schedule real quick.
Yeah, the thing with Dallas, like I said, the confidence that I have in Philly, for instance, is because I think they have groups on the field, position groups on the field that are remarkably better than the opposing. I think the Philly offensive line week to week will have the edge on the defensive lines that they go. I'm not saying guys won't get through. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts won't get sacked, but I think for the 65 NFL plays that they get, I think the Philly offensive line will grade well over those 65 plays. I'm just not seeing a position group with Dallas that can consistently win these reps every single week. And they have talent, but the cohesion that's necessary, the marriage between coach, quarterback, coordinator, and whoever the play caller is going to be, if that's going to be the head coach or the coordinator. So is the head coach going to be calling the plays, and therefore what's the purpose of the coordinator? So it's a lot going on for Dallas, and I'm not sure any of it's really like gonna win them games. I think it's gonna be a tough year, even with Dak. I think the money Dak makes is gonna be a talking point all year long. It's like, you're paying this guy $60 million. He should be doing X, Y, Z. And it might be a situation like, listen, you can't beat Philly if Philly runs for 230 yards in one of these games. But like, Dak went 17 for 30. Like, okay, cool. But Philly ran for 235 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's like, you didn't beat him that game last year.
Jake Ferguson got paid before.
And Atlanta can't be a standard if you're talking about Super Bowls. Like, beating the Falcons can't be like, oh, we beat them when you guys are talking about Super Bowls every July.
Jake Ferguson got paid before Micah Parsons. But looking at the schedule, for real though, looking at the schedule, Dallas could be 4-2, 5-1 headed into that Washington game. Because
5-1,
they could be. I think we both agreed that week 1 is going to get off to a rough start. You know what I mean? Obviously, the Giants are the Giants. We're about to talk about them in a second.
Correct.
Are we believing in Caleb Williams yet? Green Bay, right? I picked them to win the division. Spoiler alert. But then you were like, yo, I don't know if Jordan Love, I don't know if their defense has got experience, so like,
the experience Dallas win that game? I think the wide receivers are young, but young wide receivers run really fast, and if you don't have anyone properly playing cover 3, they're going to somebody go right by them. And Jordan Love is going to find them.
Am I trusting Justin Fields? You know what I mean? I like what Carolina's doing, just like I like what the Charlotte Hornets are doing. But the problem is all of them young. So they got to put it together first. So Carolina could sneak a win there. You know what I mean? But is it probable? You know what I mean?
I like Carolina to beat them because I believe that what you did the year before, good, bad, or indifferent, can help you going like the following year. Like we talked about with Washington. I think Dan Quinn knows that 4th and 3 might be a long 3, but I know Jay's going to make the decision that gets us those 3 yards we need. I think I was really down on Bryce Young. I thought he was undersized, but he seems to find a way to get the ball out. I think the two big targets. I saw a video of Xavier Legette and all the wide receivers on a boat just having a good time. You see him everywhere. He's in rap
up in there eating that
videos.
coon.
He was on social media, so like I think I just feel like the team, they're a young team. I believe the coaches are very young, but it feels like they could be Washington this year.
Yeah, and I
I
mean,
don't know
and
quite like 12 wins, but like I think they can pull it together. And
when they brought in that
I
coach,
believe
right?
in the type game, yeah.
When they brought in their coach, he was known as a quarterback whisperer. So, we'll see. But then, saying after the Washington game, you know what I mean? I'm going to give them the Washington game because it's at home. You know what I mean? And so then you go to Denver, Mile High. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough against that defense. Then you get Arizona and the Raiders. You could win both of those.
Yeah, those should be a win against Arizona, get a nice bye week, and then you come back to Monday Night Football prime time in Vegas. Yeah, I think that's
12
prime
through 14.
Dallas Monday Night Football and Vegas after a bye week. Yeah, I think they win that game.
But I think weeks 12 through 14 is where it all falls down.
Satan's Row.
That's just a stretch right there. They might get the Detroit win just because I'm not big on Detroit this year, but Philly and Kansas City. So the good news is Kansas City is Thanksgiving, so it's a short week.
Hold on, real quick. All right, look at these ticket prices. Look at the ticket prices for the Vegas game and ticket price for the Philly game.
I know that don't even make sense, right?
$524. Vegas.
Well, that's at Vegas. That's at Vegas.
Those prices are ridiculous.
That's at Vegas.
Like, I think Arizona Iced Tea might be more than 99 cents in Vegas. They just raising all the prices of everything.
Those tickets at Mile High ain't cheap either. You know what I mean? But yeah. So can they go 2-1 in that stretch? Home against Philly, home against Kansas City, at Detroit. Like I said, Kansas City is Thanksgiving, short week. Kansas City has a home game prior, so they're not coming from that far, but still, have to travel on the road on the short week. So could
Dallas have a light home game? I think it was like we were talking about like Indianapolis. It was somebody.
Yeah, I think it was Indianapolis. Yeah, it was
somebody that they probably could beat. Yeah.
Yeah. So then finishing it off. Let me get the preseason out of there. Finishing it off, Minnesota, Los Angeles, at Washington, at New York. So, I mean, Dallas is, until we see them play, I have to consider them the ultimate toss-up team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I said, they could beat anybody, they could lose to anybody. They could beat Philly and then turn around and lose to the Giants for no reason at all. You know what I mean? They could beat Denver at Mile High and then lose to the Raiders for no reason at all.
No one should lose to the Giants after week 10. We can pull up their schedule, but there's a lot of people should lose their jobs.
Hey, no bull. The Giants are a candidate to go 0-17. Looking at that schedule.
I mean, Russell Wilson does have. I know the rumors of him being just corny and it's like it throws people off. But if you're corny and you steal a win, like say that we're gonna get in their schedule, they steal a win, then it could be Dallas with the Super Bowl expectations and the fact that after every single game before Chris Collinsworth breaks down the NFL Sunday night game or before we get to the highlights of the game, Jerry Jones is going to be in the hallway with the 12 microphones in his face talking about all the things they need to do to get better after a loss before he even addresses the team. And if it's going to happen 2 or 3 weeks in a row, that's just going to wear thin on a lot of people. It's a lot of dudes getting a lot of money in that locker room, and they'll just kind of tolerate it because I'm pretty sure they love each other as a team and the camaraderie there. But the ancillary circumstances that Dallas is going to find themselves in, I think, will be ultimately guys be like, listen, man, my hamstring kind of tight. I'm not coming out this week. I just have that feeling like how I talked about T. Higgins last year. Them not paying T. Higgins, he's not playing on that ankle that kind of bothers him on Tuesday. Just scratch him for Sunday, he's not coming out. because ultimately, like, these still are grown men who want to, they want to win. And you can tell one team in that division, Philly, is actively every single year making moves that's going to make them good for that upcoming season and 2 seasons after that. Howie's been doing it since he got rid of Wentz. Like, I'm not sure what the moves were before, so I'm going to say drafting Jalen from that point up until now. It's clear that, like, every single move he made was going to be good for that year and good for 2 years, and every single move has panned out. We haven't seen that with Jerry Jones, and it's been consistent. Like, the moves don't match. Derrick Henry bought a house in Dallas last year before signing with Baltimore. He moved to Dallas. You couldn't get him $9 million because you waited so long to pay all these other players. That's the problem. Like,
it
you
still
had
ain't
him
paid Micah.
You literally had him at your doorstep. And then on top of that, you could have paid Micah probably less than what TJ Watt got.
This is the same thing that they did with Dak both times.
Same thing they did with CD.
You know,
Granted,
like,
I think CD kind of gave him a little bit more of a favor. I think CD's still getting 34.
Going up.
Price of the brick is going up.
You know, but the Giants, right? So look, the Giants need to impersonate the Ryan Tannehill era Tennessee Titans. Just play solid defense and don't turn the ball over. You know, because when you look at this, right, you look at the Giants defense, you brought it up earlier, all that talent they got on defense. They got Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence might be the best defensive tackle in the whole NFL. You know what I mean? So like, the Giants are not.
You didn't even mention Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter, you know, because he get owned by Josh Connerly. That's why. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you started it up. I like it. I like
What I'm saying? Bring it on, Abdul. Bring it on. You know, but no, seriously though, the Giants are not necessarily, in my mind at least, they're not as bad as we think of them. They just play in the wrong division. You know what I mean? Like, if I put the Giants in the AFC South or the NFC South, they might win 7-8 games. No, not really. Not really. Not really.
I mean, if they had, because we talked about this for the last couple of years, felt like Brian Daboll, like I said, I'm not calling for people's jobs. I'm just looking at, like, what has worked in the NFL and what hasn't. And in recent years, when you get rid of the quarterback that somebody else drafted, and you're going to draft another one, you're going to bring in another one, you probably should get rid of the coaching staff too and start anew. Chicago's going to learn that lesson because they keep doing it. They keep drafting a guy with one regime, getting rid of that regime, bringing a new coach. That quarterback doesn't like that coach, or that thing doesn't work out. And then you bring in a new regime, a new quarterback, that doesn't work. I think that the Giants are going to head on that path. Appreciate the engagement. I think the Giants are headed for that path. I think the move to get Jackson Dart, as far as contractually, basically lock him in for 5 years. As a first-round pick, they can sit him this year, get his 4 years, franchise tag him. They basically got him for like 7 years. But initially, like, you get the initial 5 and then a couple of years after that. So if you don't want to pay him, but you want to see how it works out, okay, I get that. But you brought in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, 2 people who probably won't be able to help him become a better quarterback. So maybe he can learn how to be a professional from Russ. He can learn how to deal with adversity from Jameis. I give him that. But as far as, like, on the field success, it's not like he's backing up Aaron Rodgers, who can kind of give you some points and, like, hey, this was like to be stellar. Russell Wilson's had a down year, like, the last 4 years. So he's a journeyman who doesn't want to give up his spot. He probably thinks he has 2 more years left. He's not going to come there and teach you how to take his job. Whereas Flacco in Cleveland is like, all right, you can watch me, but if I lose a job, it is what it is. I'm 40. I'm just go home, my Super Bowl ring, and I'm good to go. So I think that's the difference with the Giants. I think they're, like I said, their defensive line is flooded with, like, number one overall high school athletes, top first round picks. So if they can pull it together for a game, yeah, I think they can cause some havoc. The problem is, I think Russell will fumble the game away and lose on a scoop and score 17-13.
The problem is that schedule. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get to that in a little bit. But the schedule
like they lost the bet. The schedule like they pissed Goodell off.
Giants might start 0-8. I don't know. But anyway, so, Tyrone Tracy, right, came in last year. Hard to replace a guy like Saquon. Ran for 839 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. They bring in Cam Scatterboo, out of Arizona State. He's going to be America's sweetheart at some point in his career.
People love him. People love the media.
He's going to be the football version of Luka, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, look at this white guy, MVP candidate.
Like Johnny Manziel with a beard.
But to Mike's point, that offensive line is bad. You know what I mean? And that's why earlier I brought up Russ not being able to necessarily move the way that he used to. So, you know what I mean? He's going to have to. He's going to have to move around. Jameis can't do it. So, if we see Jackson Dart, I'll call it, if we see him any later than week 9, I would be surprised. You know what I mean? And I just don't know, just me speaking, I don't know why you don't just start him. I mean, and I know we can make the argument.
That is Scalabrini. Hold on. He is like the new NFL Scalabrini. Yeah, that's a good one, Rez.
Like, I think that I would start Jackson Dart, you know what I mean? Just get your feet wet, learn the NFL, but then you brought in Russ, so I don't know what you do there. They also don't have any depth, you know what I mean? Malik Neighbors, he set all these records last year as a rookie, like, for one, he was, most receptions by a rookie wide receiver, 109. Youngest receiver with multiple touchdowns in a game. Fastest to reach 100 receptions. Most targets. So I told you he had 109 catches. This is how bad the Giants were. He had 170 targets. 170 targets.
I mean, listen, feed the man. I mean, you can get it to somebody else.
But they brought back Darius Slayton. They went and got Paris Campbell. I'm still waiting for Jalen Hyatt, to look like anything that he resembled in college.
Listen, the Giants GM is not good at his job. We saw it on Hard Knocks. We saw it with the way the Saquon deal transpired. It's not just that they didn't pay him. It was the dialogue and the conversation he was having about
Coach
him.
Cups.
It just was like, I understand that you don't want to overpay a guy at that position because that is the narrative in the NFL right now. I understand if you're just following that protocol, but to add, you don't want to pay a running back $12 million while you hand off to a $40 million quarterback. That quarterback shouldn't have got the $40 million. We all thought that as soon as it happened. We're not football professionals, but as soon as we saw the Adam Schefter tweet that Daniel Jones got 4 years, $160 million, everyone was like, what? I don't think a single person outside of Daniel Jones's agent thought that was a good
watch
deal.
Your mouth about the Colts quarterback.
He's going to be their starter. So that was the problem I had. When his own children were in his office saying, who should we draft? They were like, do whatever you got to do to get Jaden Daniels. He was like, huh? And didn't I mean, it's a poorly run organization. It was caught live in 4K. And the fact that these guys still have their jobs, the owner sat in there and said, I'm going to find it hard to sleep if Saquon goes to Philly. And Saquon went to Philly and won a ring. And people still have their jobs. They're a poorly run organization.
The only difference between the Steelers and the Giants is Mike Tomlin.
They're
owned by the same families. And that's what I'm saying.
They're related.
That's the only difference is they
their
got Mike
families
Tomlin.
are married. It's like goddamn the King of England and the King of Spain sending their children off to get married. Like, that's literally what they are. Like, the actress, her name is Rooney Mara, because one half of the family is the Rooneys and the other half is the Mara. And her sister acts the same thing. So it was like, she was a fantastic boy, the terrible version.
So on defense, they did get Javon Holland from Miami as well. That's an awesome pickup for the Giants. So one side of the ball, they seem to be making the requisite corrections. It's that offensive side of the ball that's going to get them in trouble. But Mr. Logical, Daboll is letting go of play calling. Mike Kafka's going to be calling the plays again. He called the plays the year they made the playoffs.
It doesn't matter when you don't have.
This ain't the one about Joe Burrow. This ain't the one about
have a team. Remember that first year Russ was in Denver, and it was something like, if they could have scored 17 points in like their first 10 games, they'd have been 9-1.
Yeah, they were the NFL Iowa.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and I believe that's going to happen again. Where I think the defense, like I said,
I don't know if the Giants have scored 17 at all.
They have such talent on defense. I think they can hold teams to 16 3/4, like in the 3 quarters. I think they can hold teams around 17 points. But then that fourth quarter is going to come. Is like, listen, we can't keep going out there down 17-3 and getting y'all the ball back every single week. Like, someone has to do something. It's like, it's exhausting keeping the Philadelphia Eagles at 17 points through 3 quarters. We're throwing everything out there. Hell, we got Scatterboo out there blitzing too. We're doing everything we could do. Get us some points. Like, get something. And I think that frustration is going to boil over, because the people who run the show should not be there. And the agents of these players know that. The friends of these players know that. The players know that. We all saw what Saquon did in Philly. We all saw the Hard Knocks clips. Now imagine you got to go work for this guy.
This whole conversation makes me think of Thursday Night Football. Darius Slayton against Washington with about 10 yards on everybody.
And Daniel Jones threw it to the cheerleaders.
No, Darius Slayton.
He didn't touch the ball. He didn't touch
I thought he dropped it.
Nah, I think it went off maybe a fingertip, but he was wide open.
No, I think he. Hold on, I'm about to pull this up.
I don't think he got the ball in his hand at all.
I think he dropped this, bro. I think he dropped this.
I don't think it touched his hand. It didn't touch the palm of his hand, considering he was wide open.
All right,
he should have hit him in the money.
All right, let's look at this, and then we'll pull up their schedule after we look at this.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Look at this.
Here you go.
Now look at this throw.
First down, Jones.
He is wide open. Wide open.
You got to catch that.
You got to put it on him when he's
you got to stretch out for that. You got to you got to stretch out or something for that.
He probably was thinking like, "Oh, I'm so open, it's gonna land in my hands."
First down, Jones.
Yeah, it did hit his hands. I give you that, but like,
yeah, that's what this whole conversation makes me think of when we talk about the Giants. You know, that play right there.
And that's what their season is gonna look like. It's unfortunate.
You know
I mean, all I'm saying is like, I'll be able to catch a cheap game in like October when the tickets for the lower bowl are like $27 because they're 0-6.
Yeah, so speaking of which, let's look at this Murderer's Row that the Giants have this year.
A 50-minute ride on the turnpike.
I don't know where the break is in this schedule, to be honest with you. So, so here you go. Right now, we're looking at the first 12 games here. So at Washington and at Dallas back-to-back to start the season. So division road games off top. And you're the worst team in the division, with the worst offensive line in the division, with the worst quarterback in the division, with the worst receiver group in the division. It's a lot going on there. Then you get Kansas City coming in. Like, oh, okay, cool. Here comes Patrick Mahomes.
It's prime time. Looks like NBC, so Sunday Night Football. If Kansas City has problems with an athletic front, like which I think the Giants will be able to present with Abdul Carter, Thibodeau, I believe Abdul Carter and Thibodeau are probably like the same type of player as far as like size and skill set, and where you can put them on the field. So if Thibodeau can put it together, and Abdul Carter can kind of show this
of the year, by the way.
Show like this, because they had him rated. I believe people had him rated as the best player in the draft.
Yeah,
multiple pundits had him rated as their best player. Maybe they confused Kansas City on a Sunday night and catch him off guard.
Nah.
I like New Orleans. I like New Orleans for a win for them, because I think New Orleans won't have their.
Who are you to doubt Tyler Shuck?
I saw that pass he threw against Air.
That man is 31 years old. He coming in poised.
Man graduated with me too.
But then, so even if they get that win, so you got the Chargers. So maybe they beat the Chargers, because the Chargers have been known to.
Their bye week's week 14.
The Chargers have been known to drop an egg or two. So let's just say they beat New Orleans. Then you go Philly, at Denver, at Philly, San Francisco.
1-7, 1-8, 1-9, 1-10.
So then you're like, okay. So then you're like
2-11, 2-11 at New England.
So maybe you're like, hey, you know what? Caleb Williams is still like trying to figure this thing out. Maybe we could sneak a win at Soldier Field, right? And then you just like, oh, Green Bay, at Detroit, at Foxborough. Finally get a breather. Then you come back to Washington, home game against Washington.
You got best case scenario. And it seems
best
unfair.
Best case scenario, 5 wins. Best case scenario.
So who slips up and gives them the 2 wins? Because if I'm saying, because you're an NFL team, you're a professional organization, I can't imagine you going out there like a JV football team and losing 11 of 12 games in the NFL.
So I'm gonna say
3-10. Saints, Chicago, and New England. That's 3-10.
I'm gonna say Saints and Minnesota should be wins.
No, I'm talking about in the first 13 weeks.
Oh, the first 13. Like I said, I'm nervous about the Chargers dropping an egg. You know what I mean?
But just going to run the ball.
We'll go New Orleans as the win. In Chicago,
that's the only other 50-50 shot I can see.
New Orleans and Chicago.
And New
England could be a toss-up.
Because if there's no
Minnesota, the Raiders could be a toss-up. And
really?
What I'm saying? Yeah. I don't trust Geno Smith.
So that gets you 4-13.
Possibly. I mean, they could be picking number 1 in the draft, in the year that everybody's trying to get Arch. Like, it's going to be between them.
They can't do that. They can't go get Arch after they had his uncle. That'd be crazy.
It's going to be between the Giants, the Browns.
The Browns would be good. I think the Browns would be good.
The Vikings. Those are going to be the 4 fighting for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, the Giants are looking prime for that, because like we're saying, just
the schedule alone.
The schedule alone.
Even if I thought the Giants were a decent team, like the schedule is still enough to bury you.
The schedule, the fan base, the lack of faith that I personally have in the GM, and the mere fact that you drafted the type of quarterback that New York wants. A flashy, young, handsome guy with the full hawk and the jewelry. His name is Jackson Dart. I mean, like from Utah, like just your good wholesome big quarterback. Doesn't have, like, sometimes you get a quarterback that's like, you know what, he's undersized, or like he's built for the position. He's built for the corporate face that you want to highlight in New York City as the Giants, as the premier organization of the city behind the Yankees and the Knicks. So there's no way the fans, I wouldn't say allow, but after week 9, if you're 1-8 after week 9 and you're still going to roll Russ out there again on Sunday, November 12th, you're out of your mind. There's no way as an organization you can do that, because you got to throw in the towel.
Hey, they'll mess around and start Jameis. You know what I'm saying? And just tell Jackson Dart, hey, you got this next year. Like we're 1-9. Ain't no reason to throw you out here.
But if they check it out now, let's play the crazy sports podcast hypothetical. If they really go 2-3-14, 4-13, and they get the number 1 pick, and Arch comes out,
right?
You think that, and they don't play Jackson Dart this year at all, do you think they're just going to let Arch Manning just slip?
Yes. I think people are going to call them because look, this is the way that I look at it, right? And this is
people
where
going to call them and they're like, listen, we'll give you Jackson Dart.
But this is
if
where
they have the number 1 pick, they're not giving up Arch. They giving up Jackson Dart. Like they'll take calls with Jackson Dart.
This is where self-awareness comes in. If we're on the court right now playing basketball, I'm not guarding the dude that's 6'6". You know what I'm saying? Because I'm aware that I'm not even 6 feet tall, so I ain't no reason for me to be guarding him. So looking at yourself internally, and looking at, you're the Giants, right? You're like, hey, look at us. Are we going to make the playoffs? Are we a contender? All this kind of stuff. Let's do our inventory. No, then just don't draft Jackson Dart, and you got the chance to get Arch in the first place.
But that's the thing. We already talked about the ineptitude of the GM and the owners, and like that relationship doesn't make any sense. Like no one studied anything. But if they get the number 1 pick and Arch says he's coming out, Jackson Dart will be the quarterback and insert whatever team you want that's after that. Any team that needs a quarterback next year, that's who they'll take calls on. Or if I'm the NFL, like if I'm a team, like, you know what? I'm going to let you draft Arch Manning just so you have both of them on your books, just so it ruins your franchise even more. And I get a free one off of your team because you're completely discombobulated as an organization. But if Arch Manning is sitting there and they have the number 1 pick, I'm not saying they'll trade up from 3 to 1.
But
if they're sitting there at 1, Jackson Dart.
Not only that, but remember, the Giants traded up from the 2nd round to get Jackson Dart. Because remember, we were talking about how
trade him to the Raiders for a 2nd round pick.
Because remember, we were talking about how did the Giants get away with giving up less than Atlanta gave up to get James Pierce. We were talking about that.
Yeah, I know they traded back in, but they traded back in probably thinking that they were going to be good. Stranger things have happened. But if they end up with the number 1 pick, and the last name of that number 1 pick is Manning, Jackson Dart will be playing for another team.
But see, that's kind of the problem, though, because I feel like, okay, let me ask you this. We'll wrap up on this. Let me ask you this. How many games with this schedule, how many games does Daboll need to win to keep his job?
Oh, he's fired.
Because I don't think you draft Jackson Dart. I don't think you draft Jackson Dart with him as your head coach. Because you know what I mean? Like, he's the quarterback guy. He's the guy that gave Josh Allen his best season of his career. And
Josh Allen is just an all-time young talent. He's an MVP. He's been an all-pro. He is, the Falcons GM he's a very smart dude, but I think he's one of those guys that's probably always been the smartest guy in the room. And as such, does not listen to other smart people because he feels like I'm smarter than you. I believe he was like an MIT guy, maybe a Harvard guy. Same thing with the guy in Cleveland. That's what I feel about the guy in New York. Is like sometimes people can be too smart for their own good. And New York is a big PR city. I think if you wanted the internship in public relations, you go to New York, you go to LA. Those are the 2 cities where you do it. You wouldn't go to Cleveland to learn public relations. You will.
Right.
And I think Arch Manning sitting there at number 1 would be their pick. Brian Daboll and the New York Giants have been given murderous row of a schedule, and Joe Shane hasn't given him murderers to travel down that road with. He's giving them a couple of fighters, but these guys are rookies. You got Cam and Abdul, fighters. Malik Neighbors, fighter. Russell Wilson, not a fighter. Is not a guy that's going to just pull you out of this trenches. Jameis Winston, same thing. I think they just made poor moves. I think the Jackson Dart draft pick was a bad move. I think they could have either, like, if you'd have drafted him and said he's going to be your starter, I think you could then sell to your GM, this is our rebuilding year. Because you got Abdul Carter anyway, and then you traded back to get Jackson Dart. You didn't have to go get Russell or Jameis. And Russell, granted, he's only getting about $21 million with all the bonuses. That $21 million probably could have gone to maybe another linebacker,
Another receiver,
maybe another receiver threat. Maybe you could have been in the George Pickens sweepstakes. I don't know if he wants a contract extension, but if you're starting with the rookie quarterback,
they could have got Debo.
That resets your money for like a couple of years, at least 3 years. You're not paying anybody any big money on the team because you're out of the Daniel Jones sweepstakes. You draft Jackson Dart still in the first round, so you get Abdul, Jackson Dart. Now you go get, you maybe you're George Pickens. You just get like another big threat. Maybe you're in a DK Metcalf conversation because you're not paying unnecessary money to two quarterbacks. But when you don't think like that, like you and I sitting here in my bedroom in your room, and we're having a conversation about what they could have done with this pick, and they picked the two worst guys. I love Jameis and Russ, but neither one of those guys are bridge guys or long-term guys. They're barely short-term guys. They're just guys that you didn't need. You could have just gotten Jackson Dart and tried to build an offensive line as best you could, and then sold to the GM and the leadership like, listen, we went 5-12 this year because they got some other weapons. With the young team, we're not paying this guy for 2 more years. This guy's going to be available. Or maybe you do some crazy shit like, hey, maybe we can get Tyreek Hill out of Miami because they're upset because you have draft capital. But they moved all of that. It just poorly run. And they were in a position where you are rebuilding. You need to operate as such, and they didn't. Like how Houston did a couple years ago. It's like, are you going to be young? Or you going to be old?
So you got Philly, Washington, Dallas, New York.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Philly with a lot of wins above 11, 12.
A lot of wins.
A lot of wins.
That's astute analysis there.
Yes, somewhere. I got them. If over-under is 12.5, I would take the over.
Philly's over-under is 11.5.
I'll take that all day. All day. Matter of fact, I'm about to go on DraftKings right now and take that. Washington, I'll take what's the over? Probably 9.5.
I believe it is actually.
I'll take the over there. Dallas's over is probably 7.5, maybe 8.5. I'll take the under. And the Giants, I would, if I was DraftKings, I wouldn't even make that bet. I wouldn't want to waste. I wouldn't want to lose money.
Yeah. So the Eagles are, or actually the Eagles. Yeah. So the Eagles are 11.5.
Okay.
Washington's 9.5.
Okay.
Dallas is 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
And the Giants are 5.5.
5.5. Yeah, I'm about to go ahead and take this over. Over on Philly. I'm gonna take the under on Dallas. I'm gonna take the under on the Giants. I'm gonna take the over on Washington. Go ahead and make that nice little 4-leg parlay.
All right. So,
$100 and see what happens.
All right, so I'm going out as a sucker. I got Washington with the tiebreaker. I got what, and I actually did walk this out on the simulator. I did actually do this myself.
Yeah.
So I got Washington and Philly at 11-6 with Washington with the tiebreaker. You know what I'm saying? I got Dallas at 8-9, and I got the Giants at 4-13.
I mean,
but Washington wins the division on a technicality.
I admire the optimism.
Remember at the start of the show, the first thing that I said, the NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion since 2003, 2004.
Yeah, they also haven't had a juggernaut like Howie Roseman.
Philly had a lot of health. Philly had a lot of health go their way, and Residente can tell you health is the biggest thing.
Injuries can derail anything, but
having depth, made it through a year, now make it through 2.
They had depth They
Make
had
it through 2.
continuity. They have a great system. I think it's more than just. I know the individual players make up for it, but the Giants have all healthy players. We have zero optimism in them getting any wins. Like right now, we're thinking they can go fully healthy all year. We don't think they're going to get any wins because we don't think that they have the type of players in position to get wins. I think Philly has a type of players. Like I said, the position groups win out week to week. I think they're better at most position groups than the other teams, especially in their division.
Dallas is either going to make the playoffs or their coach is going to be one and done. No in between, probably. You know what I mean?
I think he'll get 2 years because Jerry don't want to look bad.
Yeah, you know what I
Because
mean.
Jerry don't want to look like I made the mistake by literally. I fired one coach and then I hired the guy who was there, and he was part of the reason why I fired the other coach.
Right.
Make it make sense.
There you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the NFC East preview. We will be back on Friday to talk about the NFC South. You know what I'm saying? Can the Falcons defend the compressor?
98, baby.
Can Big Play Bake, use his new weapons? Can Carolina make a move? And then are the Saints going to be worse than the Giants? That and much more on Sports Reports is ordered. You know what I'm saying? We love y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, review, subscribe, rate, do all the free things, do all the good things. Finished my Liquid Death, about to start Liquid Death number 2. So you do that too. You know what I'm saying? And we'll be back. Wherever you get your podcasts, y'all, hit that notification bell on YouTube and all that. He is the world famous, the world renowned, cool, calm, collected. He is Mr. Logical. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Resident statistician, Joe Hendry Believer, 2-5. Peace. Tiebreaker.